Welcome to Quilting with Lori. My name is Lori Dickman, and today we're going to be working on part 3 of our Pumpkin Logs a YouTube sew-along class. It's been a mystery quilt, and this week we're going to be working on the borders. So far we have created the center of the quilt, which involved the log cabin blocks and also the applique blocks in the center. And this week we're going to be working on what could be considered piano key borders. They're small 1.5-inch strips of fabric. Let me grab those and show you what they look like. For those of you who have registered for the class, you would have gotten your week 3 PDF of instructions with all of the information on how to put this border together. And these are the strips that we have cut. They're all 1.5-inch with the fabric strips, and then they are subcut into these specific sizes. And each of those logs is 1/4 of an inch difference in length, which allows this beautiful staggered edge. And it's just quite beautiful on the quilt itself. And that is what it looks like as you're putting it together. Now, I am using oranges, golds, and greens in my quilt. You might be making yours with complete scraps from your stash, and I hope that you are. This is a great quilt to use your scrap stash. But if you're using a particular colorway, just identify which colorway you'd like for the areas that I'm using, and then you can follow along in the PDF. But what I have done here is I have 2 of my orange number 1s on the outside, 2 orange number 2s on the inside, 2 orange number 3 here, 2 green number 1s there, 1 each of the green number 2 here, and then 1 of this green number 3 in the center. These are all the same length, and then the others are staggered on down from each side. And each border, this is a border block. It's 19.5 inches by 6.5 inches. This is one border block. We'll sew 2 of them together for each of the sides of the quilt. So you're going to make a total of 8 of these. And again, you can make them as I have, where I've grouped a couple of them together and staggered them by color variation, or maybe yours are going to be very, very scrappy. Here is the back side of the block. As I sewed the top log to the bottom, I pressed those seam allowances open. They just laid much better by doing that, and you'll definitely want to shorten your stitch length so that they don't pop open as you're working with that. So I pressed all of those open, and then when I got to sewing the logs together, I pressed everything toward one direction, and it all went this direction. That's how I pressed it. You could certainly press these all open as well. Totally up to you. You'll see here, I actually had to add a strip in there because I ran out of some fabric. So I've got an extra piece in there. But that is how I've put them together. That's how I pressed it. And now I need to make 3 more of these block units so that, I actually need to make 7 more of these block units so that I'll have what I need to completely encircle the quilt itself. It isn't too late to join this class. You can certainly go down to the description box below this video, and you'll see the link there that will take you out to my website where you can actually subscribe and register for this class. It's just a $15 class. You're getting all of the PDFs as well as all of the videos so that you'll be able to make this wonderful quilt. I hope that many more will join. We have so many that have joined us already, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to see all of your quilts and your blocks as you finish them. I hope you'll post them out on my Facebook page. I've got a link below at the bottom of the description box below here. Please go out to my Facebook group page and get those posted. I'd love to see your blocks and your quilts. As I've shared with you in the past, there are many ways to make every block that's out there, and I usually only share with you one way to put a block together. What I'm going to share with you today is how I've gone ahead and done mine. I'm going to assembly line. I'm going to start with these orange number 1s with their corresponding tops and follow the pattern so you know which size top goes with which size bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and get those sewn together. Then I'm going to grab my 4 gold with their tops. Then I'm going to grab my orange number 3 with the top. So I'm calling this orange 1, orange 2, orange 3, this is green 1, this is green 2, and green 3. And that's how I'm going to put them together in assembly line fashion. Then I'll press them all, cut them apart, and then sew the logs together. Here you see where I've lined up my orange number 1s, and I've placed the corresponding top log on top of it. They're right sides together. I've got my 1/4 inch foot on, and I'm simply going to assembly line fashion sew all of this. Then I'll grab orange number 2 and do the same thing. I'm doing 4 of them because 2 of these will go on each side of this block. Here's orange number 1 up there, orange number 2, and now I'm working on getting orange number 3 sewn. One thing you'll want to do is reduce your stitch length to 2 or 2.2. That way, because this is such a small area here that you're stitching across, you don't want the stitches to come loose, so reduce your stitch length as you're sewing. I've already done that, and I'm going to continue now with this long assembly line fashion of the pumpkin logs, and continue sewing. Before I take this to the iron, I'm actually just finger pressing these open all along here, and that will just make it more convenient once I get up to the iron and press them open. And then I'm going to use my little handy cutter and get everything cut apart. I've gone ahead here and I've pinned these in pairs, and I'll be stitching down the long side. But when I pinned them, I made sure that those seams were perfectly matched up. So let me open this up here for you. So those are the seams right there, and I wanted to make sure that they're perfectly matched up. So therefore, I put a pin to kind of lock it in place. And then as I stitch each of these down this long side, I can ensure that those match perfectly. So I have all of the segments ready to go here. I've got 2 number 1, 2, and 3 of the orange, 2 number 1 of the green. I have 2 of the green number 2 and 1 of the green number 3. I've already put that together as a threesome. 2 more green number 1, 2 orange number 3, orange number 2, and orange number 1. There's 2 of each of those. You could, if you wanted to, for a lot of these segments, you could simply cut out 2.5 inch strips of both the top and the bottom based on the length that you need, and subcut based on the length that you need. And that way you're not actually sewing 2 of each of these together. But if you are using or putting together a very scrappy quilt, then of course you'll want to go with 1 inch. 1.5 inch with the fabric cuts. And then of course here, you'll definitely need to do the 1.5 inch for each of these because it's going together in this fashion. So you simply put together each of your blocks, your border blocks in this fashion. I'm going to go ahead and get these all sewn together. I'm going to press them all to one side, all of the seam allowances, and then this is the second block that I'm working on, and then I'll have to make 6 more to finish all the way around the quilt. There'll be 2 of these blocks on the sides and 2 on the top and 2 on the bottom, which equates to 8 of these border blocks that you'll need. One thing to keep in mind when you're sewing these segments together, those seam allowances will not match. There's going to be a 1/4 inch difference on all of them, and that's what creates the stagger. So don't try to match up these seam allowances between the colorways. Make sure that they are staggered. That will give you that unique piano border, staggered piano border look. Here it is, all sewn together, and now I'm going to go press it. When I press it, I'm going to press everything to one side. So here is the border. I've laid it out next to the quilt. Here is one block, and you'll see that I've sewn it together here. There are 2 blocks sewn together per side for each quilt, for each side of the quilt. And each of these blocks should measure 19.5 by 6.5 before you sew it together. And then when you do sew it together, these 2 blocks together, these 2 border blocks, should measure 6.5 by 38.5. Last week when we finished the center of the quilt, we made sure that it measured 38.5 inches square, and then this border will fit on there perfectly. So you could actually sew 2 of these sides on right now if you'd like to. When you finish them, the remaining 2 sides we'll want to wait until we get our corners done. Next week we'll be working on the 4 corners. They will be appliqued pumpkin corner squares. So you'll get those templates and the instructions for that in week number 4. There will be one more outer border that we'll get instructions on next week as well. So in week number 4, you're going to be doing the 4 corner squares as well as the outside border. And then we'll be able to put everything together, and then the quilt will be ready for you to get it quilted, bound, and labeled. Notice on these here, that's just the staggered logs, and they're even between the colorways, but there's a 1/4 of an inch difference in all of these 3 are the same as well, but there's a 1/4 of an inch difference here. And that's what creates that beautiful staggered look in the border. And it's going to be just beautiful when it's finished and attached to the quilt. Thank you so much for joining me this week as we have worked on these beautiful borders. And I look forward to seeing you all next week as we finish the rest of the quilt. Until next week, happy quilting.